Hello, good evening everybody. Many apologies. This is the first time that I've actually not got into a Zoom straight away. And it's typical, isn't it? Probably the most important one I struggle with. Anyway, enough of that. Let's start. Basically, we're going to start with speeches from our co-founders. Now, unfortunately, Henry Guterman passed away in 2007. So we've got his son speaking tonight in place of him, his son Mark. I'd just like to tell you a few words about Henry. Henry was born in Germany in 1926. His father was a soap manufacturer in Berlin. After Kristallnacht, and that's the night when Jewish businesses were destroyed and Jewish shops and synagogues in Germany, they decided to leave Germany and emigrate to the UK. They settled here in Manchester just before World War II. Henry was an extremely active member of the Jewish community. He served as president of the Manchester Jewish Rep Council for 2 terms. He was also a member of the Board of Deputies of British Jews for over 40 years. Throughout his life, Henry was at the helm of most of Manchester's interfaith groups. At the time of his death, it was estimated that he served on about 30 committees. This was reflected at his funeral in May 2007, which was attended by people of all faiths and cultures, and many wore the Jewish yarmulke on their head. To name just a few of the organisations he was involved with: the Council of Christians and Jews, the Three Faiths Forum, Indian Jewish Association, Black Jewish Association, Manchester Interfaith Forum, and he was awarded an MBE for all his community work. Most importantly, from our point of view, Henry co-founded the Muslim Jewish Forum of Greater Manchester with Afzal 15 years ago today. Just before I finish, I'd like to tell you one short story about Henry. I'll tell you some more later, but this one was when the forum was incorporated. Henry suggested to Afzal and Amin that I be appointed the company secretary. So he asked me, Heather, do you agree to this? And I said, Henry, why have you chosen me? And he said, well, I thought your legal background might help. I said, oh, okay then. I said, I just want to know, will the role of company secretary be a busy one? And he looked at me and he said, oh yes, it will keep you busy, definitely. Out of mischief? Probably not. And that was Henry's sense of humour. Henry was very proud of his family, Mark, Robert and Emma. Mark, the eldest, is a businessman and a former football club chairman. I now wish to invite Mark Guterman to speak on behalf of his father, our co-founder, the late, great Henry Guterman. Thank you.
1938, 12-year-old Heinz Guterman and his brother Lutz and his mother Betty arrived in Harwich, having travelled from Berlin via the Hook of Holland to be backed by their father, my grandfather, Berthold, who'd arrived in Great Britain on the 1st of November 1938. My grandfather was a great Anglophile, having spent much of his student days in England. He was a very articulate, well-read and clever man. His blind spot, like many others in Germany at the time, was their belief that the Nazi Party and the rise of Hitler would be a short-term aberration, and then their normal, genteel life in Berlin would return. The months and year prior to Christmas Eve 1938 taught him that this was not to be the case. My father was in hospital on the night of Kristallnacht when it was broken into by Nazi thugs, and he was hidden within the Jewish hospital. On November the 7th, prior to Kristallnacht, In 1938, the Gestapo had knocked on my grandmother's door looking for my grandfather, who'd been saved by a couple of days. Relatives of my grandparents did not see the threat that was in Germany, and due to this, they all perished. My father had gone to a non-denominational school in Berlin and was segregated into wearing a Star of David on his jacket and was only allowed to go to a Jewish school. He was no longer allowed to play football or skate on the lakes and the parks, something he loved doing and which he talked about in later life. He was not allowed to mix with non-Jewish friends, of which he had many. He had become a frightened alien in his own country. My father arrived as a foreign Jew, not speaking English, from a country that we were about to go to war with. But even at this early stage, he was imbued for life with the memory that he had to give something back to the country that had just saved his and his family's lives. He learnt English quickly and via school went to UMIST. From an early age, he became heavily involved in many organisations, both Jewish and non-Jewish, which became a pattern throughout his life. My father fought for the right of individuals, irrespective of colour or religion. A list of the organisations my father was involved with, including 25 at the time of his death, a list I don't believe was extensive, and I will read this to you now. I'm sorry I'm repeating some. Bury Interfaith, Collyhurst Police Community Action Group, the Commonwealth Games Advisory Committee, Disabled Living, Greater Manchester Criminal Justice Board, Diversity, Heathlands, Indian Jewish Association, Society, Manchester City Council Housing Committee, Black and Ethnic Committee, Manchester Council for Community Relations, Manchester Council of Christians and Jews, Faith Network for Manchester, the Maurice Feynman Home, National League of Hospital Friends, North Manchester Crime Prevention Council, North Manchester Hospital Black and Ethnic Committee, North Manchester Jewish Youth Project, Outreach, South East Lancashire Housing Association, South Manchester Health Authority Fair Access Group, South Manchester Synagogue, Tameside Area Health Authority, the Black Jewish Forum, the Three Faiths Forum, Trafford Partnership Board Diverse Community Forum, Trafford Sacra, Trafford Safer Partnership, Zionist Central Office, and last but not least, the Muslim Jewish Forum. I remember from my teens, my father standing outside Bolton and many other town halls, protesting and leading many actions against the National Front and the BNP. He spoke on platforms up and down the country to unite against fascism and the Anti-Nazi League. And at this time, he became very close to Sir James Anderton, who became a lifelong friend and who helped him change. My father helped him change the police policy on the interaction and closing down of the opportunities for the fascists to openly cause havoc, which was not easy in a strongly democratic country with freedom of speech. That was typical of my father, negotiating quietly behind the scenes, carrying influence. He dedicated his life to make sure that the Holocaust never happened again, which was all part of his strong ethos of payback. My father kept his Germanic determination and stubbornness, and if he believed he was right, he would debate for as long as it took to persuade the other side of his views. If that failed, he just wore them down. I know that. He believed very strongly that we have to protect all races and all religions, and he believed the Jewish community, of which he had been president of in the mid-80s, was myopic and not engaged with other communities. He had to drag them, sometimes kicking and screaming, with much derision from within the community, into an inclusive modern world of interfaith and getting rid of the cobwebs that the community seemed to hold on to. Within these beliefs, and particularly those issues that were close to his heart, he was very much a rebel with a cause. And the thread that ran through his life was that of bringing people together for peace and harmony. He had foresight and was a pioneer, and with the help of others, brought this about. He had the courage of his convictions, and he sold interfaith to a cynical and skeptical audience. I was given a recent example by Mike Samuels that at Bowden Synagogue over the last couple of years, they've had 3 iftars. And it was suggested to me that this was because of the groundwork my father and others put in over the last 20 years, that this even became possible because of they put this on the agenda. And finally, on the 15th anniversary of the forum, which was set up by my father and Afzal, I want to congratulate the forum on the incredible achievement and the influential and groundbreaking part it has played in interfaith dialogue in the UK. And I believe my father is looking down on this and will be incredibly impressed with all your hard work. I know I am. My father, who died 13 years ago, was only around for the first 2 years of your existence. On a personal level, I am very grateful that you have cherished and polished my father's legacy with all your hard work, and you've never forgotten him. I apologise if I've left anyone out. I am forever indebted to Afzal, Mohammed, Heather, Johnny, and last but not least, June. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Mark. Just like to add a couple of things to that. In 2014, we won the British Muslim Award for Spirit of Britain, and Afzal and I went up on the stage to collect that award. And I said to Afzal, I think we should dedicate it to Henry, and we did. And likewise, in 2016, we won a Northwest Fusion Award. And again, we all went up on the stage and dedicated it to Henry. So Henry has been in our thoughts for all these years, and obviously he laid the groundwork. Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you.
I'd now like to go and introduce the second speaker, Afzal Khan MP. Now, he often complains that my introduction to him is longer than his speech. So tonight I will use just 3 sentences to introduce him. Long sentences. Afzal co-founded our Muslim Jewish Forum with the late Henry Guterman 15 years ago. Since then, we've developed his good work and organised 124 diverse events in Greater Manchester. And Afzal has attended most of these 124, even though part of the time he worked in Brussels as an MEP. He was awarded a CBE for his extensive interfaith and community work in 2008. Afzal is a former, this is a long sentence, a former mill worker, butcher, bus driver, police officer, local councillor, Lord Mayor of Manchester, MEP, and like me, a solicitor. In fact, for the 1 or 2 of you that don't know, he was the rival solicitor across the road from me, and we used to compete for divorce cases. For the past 3 years, he has been the MP for Manchester Gorton. Over to you, Afzal Khan, CBE MP.
Thank you very much, Heather. As always, you are generous in the introduction. Can I say to everyone, good evening, salam, shalom. It's an amazing honor and privilege, actually, I feel, to be here with you to mark this 15th anniversary of the Muslim Jewish Forum. And to be honest, we have come a long way. Like Heather said, 124 events. If I'm honest, I'm surprised. It's a big number. As anyone who's engaged, you know, for a single event to organize, it takes a lot of effort. So it shows really, in a sense, the commitment, dedication that we have. And I also feel really proud of this journey that we have traveled. One only has to look around the current climate to see the difficulties that we all face and how there is so much division globally, and of course here in the UK too. And the interfaith sort of work of different communities coming together, really, I think, is sort of emphasized the importance of it. So the work we started 15 years ago, I think, is showing that really there is this need. We've seen the rise of Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, and the danger that comes from it of discrimination based on religion and faith. Now, we've heard about Henry Guterman. I met him well over 20 years ago, and my acquaintance developed from his activities, the work that he was doing in this so many different organizations. I shared many of those organizations with him, and through that we were able to get to know one another. This was mentioned before, United Against Fascism. It's a big national organization, been going for a long time now. And Henry genuinely was all over the country, standing up for what he believed in. He believed in having good, strong relationships. He understood that division actually doesn't help anyone. It's bringing together, which is the key. So his commitment to that. Cllr was another big organization which looked at the religious education. He regularly was there and very vocal on that as well. Interfaith work, you've heard many of those organizations. So my friendship, I suppose, developed with Henry Guterman. We used to often talk about many of these issues and challenges. And hence the idea of the forum itself then was discussed. And from my very sort of personal perspective, I looked at Islam and Judaism as being the two faiths which are probably the most close in the faith perspective of all faiths. Of course, we have Abrahamic faiths, you know, and I often use this idea that if someone came alien and looked at these Abrahamic faiths, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, he will say, look, this is the same tree here. And then, of course, you have the branches which have developed. So you could see that commonality that exists. So I always felt that very strongly. So I thought, you know, in a sense, we share so much together. The idea of the God, the holy books, many of the themes that we get in the Quran actually are linked to the prophets. And what surprised me when I looked into it closer, you know, Prophet Moses was mentioned 136 times in the Quran. So this whole faith idea and looking at the history, drawing lessons and teaching is really deep in a Muslim faith, both of Christianity and Judaism. These are sort of used in order to drive a sort of lesson home. So in that sense, I felt, you know, that there is so much in common we have. And yet what we find is the division, in a sense, is more dominant here. So the aim of the forum, in that sense, we developed was trying to bring the two communities together locally and together set up the Muslim Jewish Forum. Because of that, we developed this cultural and social ties. We understood the importance of that and how we could move forward with this in both in Manchester and wider Greater Manchester level. And then to educate Muslim and Jewish communities in the relationship of our shared values and our common Abrahamic traditions. And of course, we realized because of our common interests, we needed to make sure that we reach out to the wider society for them to also understand of our common interests and the way we could work together. So I think this has been the driving idea. On a personal level, I mean, I can't speak for Henry at that stage, but from a personal level, I know I got stick from both communities, but that's fine. In a way, it encouraged me, strengthened me, because I felt if I'm getting stick from both sides of some elements, then there must be something right we're doing. So I think, so when I do look back, I honestly think it is a long way that we have come, and this 124 events is really big achievement. These events have been really wide and diverse in activities. I find the lawyers and accountants events really impressive because they've always been very informative. They've also been linked to the current and they've been relevant. Faith festivals, celebrating of one another's really shows us that common ideas and also helps us to bring together. Having regular dinners, I felt it helped us all to build this close bond in the relationship of friendship with one another as well. And some of the sort of top big events for me, I suppose I would say, is the 10th anniversary at Manchester Town Hall. It's an amazing building, and the Manchester Town Hall is the center of that jewel of the town hall. The city council was kind enough to help us, sponsor us. And then we had an excellent speakers from Chief Rabbi and a senior imam from the Muslim Council of Britons. That I thought was pretty good. Pity in the 15th anniversary with COVID-19, we can't do something similar. But who knows, down the road we may do some big event on that as well. And I think the other, I suppose, was a good football tournament. I thought the young people in the name of Henry Guterman, that was pretty great stuff. Helped us to reach out to young people as well. So that I think is also something I look up to. And I think probably the most moving experience that I have had was when it was linked to the Gaza listening event, when the two communities sort of came together with the difficulties of the Middle East and were able to, I thought, very cleverly actually handling it, because we knew this is a difficult subject. We've always said, keep this out of it because it's not going to help our strengthen relationship. When we're strong enough, we can look at it. But this, there's a huge pressure with what was going on. And I felt this as probably the most moving event we ever did. And I thought the clever thing was, while the events were in Middle East, but we really brought it down to Greater Manchester and to the individual level, and to say, well, how is it having impact on us? And I thought seeing about at least half a dozen people crying there, the emotional impact it was having, I thought it really gave us a real opportunity to understand from different perspectives. So I thought for me, that probably was the most moving experience of this whole 15 years, which I enjoyed as well. I learned so much from it as well. And in a way, it actually had a huge impact on me. It had huge impact in the sense that it really committed me solidly on this idea of working to get peace in the Middle East. This is the only way forward, making sure that we achieve that. So that, I think, is the big one for me. I think the achievement we worked on, halal and kosher, both in this country and taking it to the European level, getting that message, again, I thought was pretty good and impressive. So I think, Heather, you mentioned some of those achievements and recognitions. And that I think is great, I think well-deserved. They were both regionally recognitions and nationally recognitions. I felt proud in the sense that many international organizations have been reaching out to us as well. So this message has been going wider. So that too, I feel really proud. So I think late Henry Guterman was actually, it was an incredible individual. He was warm. I think he was so witty. And I remember on his death saying this, you know, that Henry was an institution. You know, you heard today 30 plus different organizations that he was engaged with. And I felt the Jewish community would need at least a dozen people to match what Henry was doing. He was a phenomenal individual, I felt, you know, who was committed, who cared, and who did so much good work, not only for the Jewish community, but much wider, for society as a whole. And we have to salute individuals like that, I think, for what they've done. And he, in a sense, was instrumental to our development and what we did. He put the roots to this whole idea, and we were able to help to grow this further. So I think I would probably at this stage want to thank Johnny, who's also been a co-chair here, Heather, yourself, and Amin Saab as well. And of course, many other people who have been consistently part of our executive, helping this forum to grow. So I feel really proud with all that. And I feel, in a sense, looking ahead point of view, when I started this, what I was saying, you know, I said, you know, look around. So when we look around, one thing is absolutely clear, that the need is still there. The need hasn't gone away. And we really need to move forward in that sense. I mean, I would like to see the Muslim Jewish Forum actually focusing more on the young people. I think they are our future, and we need to be doing some activities to pull them together, help them. because it's going to be such a difficult world out there, the challenges they face, and there's a lot that they can share with one another as well, and to help one another with that as well. I think some of the good work either you and Amin and others have been doing is reaching out to other organizations, because I think that is also very important. Manchester, Greater Manchester has an amazing different organization which operate different interfaith work that happens. For us to reach out, then in a way it helps both ways, both ourselves, of the message, and other communities, and reaching out to the wider, because ultimately it's the humanity idea which we all sort of come together. And the faith, both of the faiths, teach us about this compassion. It underlines this, our faiths. And Judaism says this about loving the neighbor as well. Islam says, you cannot be a believer unless you wish the same for your brother. So these are the same compassionate values of humanity, of a better world. So I am proud of where we are and the work we collectively have done. I want to thank every single one of those individuals who have been involved with this as well. And let us another cheers for the next 15 years as well. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Afzal. That was one of your longest speeches. So I'd just like to add a couple of things. My three favourite events have been the 15th anniversary photograph. I really thought that was
10th anniversary. 10th.
Yeah, that was very special. Then a football tournament. So I agree with you with two. The third one, I think, was the very first or even second or the third big concert, because the two Jackies, to get together 100 people. Possibly I enjoyed the third the best because we got to see Amin dancing. So I think really the concerts absolutely stick out in my mind. You mentioned about having a proper anniversary. Well, it is intended to go ahead with an anniversary party on the 1st of November. Now, this time our council, Salford City Council, have given us our town hall in Swinton for that. So we've got to hope, obviously, COVID quietens down and we're able to go ahead with that on the 15th anniversary on the 1st of November. And just two other things. Yes, we have reached out to many other organisations, and you and I in particular have spoken at Adam Day every single year, and in fact we'll be speaking again this August. And we have joined up with a group in Bury, and I've spoken at their events as well. So I think we've reached out. Finally, the media. At first it was very, very hard to get in the media, and I think the only thing that would have got us in the media is if Johnny Weinberg had punched Afzal Khan at the meeting, and then it would have made headlines. But I think we've worked very, very hard at doing press releases. Amin and I have done so many press releases, and they are being picked up more, which is good. And of course, the pinnacle of our media success, for those of you who don't know, came about 5 years ago when we made it to a national newspaper, albeit the Daily Star, but still national newspaper, whatever they are. And they put a whole spread of us at the picnic on the Daily Star. So that was some achievement. Although I do recall that Amin wouldn't buy the Daily Star, so he sent Tahara in to buy a copy. Anyway, without further ado, I'd now like to turn to Mrs. June Rosen, who was also with us at the very, very beginning. And I think it's only fitting that it should be Mrs. Rosen, Mrs. June Rosen, who does the vote of thanks to our speakers this evening. Over to you, June.
Yeah. That was a very formal introduction, Heather. Thank you. Honoured speakers and friends, I feel it's a great privilege to give the vote of thanks on this momentous occasion. Afzal, not only are we delighted to welcome you, but it's of great importance that you are here. As co-chair, you, together with the late Henry Guterman, had the vision to set up the Muslim-Jewish Forum. For that, as well as your presence here this evening, we give you our gratitude and our thanks. You have many commitments, but your interest and your support for the forum is always there. Thank you. Mark, it gives us great pleasure that you were here on the occasion of our 15th anniversary. When someone dies in Judaism, it is customary to say, "May his memory be for a blessing." I think your dear father certainly fulfilled that, and he was so be proud of you that you are here. We give you our sincere thanks. It is well-known fact that the City of Manchester has always been in the forefront of progress and innovation, be it industrial, technological, social, political, or religious. Many ideas and groups have flourished here, influenced the city, the wider community, and even further afield. We believe with pride that the Muslim Jewish Forum can join their number. To our speakers, thank you again.
And thank you very much, June, for, as ever, a very competent professional vote of thanks. I'd now like to go back to my co-chair, Mohammed Amin MBE, who will now open up the discussion where people will share their views of the forum so far. And as Afzal said, I totally agree, we have to try and get younger people involved, but it's easier said than done. So I'd like your views from the past and your views from the future, and Amin will chair this discussion. So put up your hand if you'd like to speak to Amin. Over to Amin, thank you.
Right, as the chair, I'm going to use the chairman's prerogative to start by saying a few words myself. Earlier today, I looked at my electronic files, which have the minutes of all our annual general meetings, apart from a couple of very early ones. I didn't bother going to look for my paper copies of those meetings. And when I listed out all the people who've served on our executive committee, I found 29 unique names. And that tells me two things. Firstly, we've had some changes with people coming and going over time. That's actually a good thing, because if the same people run an organization forever, it becomes very ossified. Secondly, we have had lots of stability with 29 executive committee members. Remember, we have 11 or 12 at a time. And that stability is also vital. If the committee changes too much, too quickly, it's very destabilizing. So both of these are reasons why we've lasted so well and made such a difference. In March of this year, Heather and I spoke to some students at Salford University about the forum. And apart from other questions they had, they wanted to know what we had got out of the forum. That was a challenging, but also very important question. Obviously, no money. We are a charity, we run on a shoestring, and everybody's a volunteer, including the co-chairs. However, everyone who stays on the executive must feel that they are getting something out of it. And what I personally have got out of the forum, well, knowing that I'm making Manchester and the world a better place is probably the single most important thing. I've met many interesting people, both in Manchester and starting from the Manchester connections in London. For example, at our 10th anniversary dinner, I spent the whole evening sitting next to the Chief Rabbi, Ephraim Mervis. And finally, but not least, I've made many friends. Now, I do have the first volunteer who wants to say something, so I'm going to call upon Rab Nawaz.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you to both the speakers. And, you know, my late dad used to say that whatever you do in future, whatever you become, never forget your roots. And I suppose that's true for organizations as well. So it's really nice that today, as we're celebrating our 15th kind of anniversary, we are also remembering our co-founders, the late Henry Guterman and obviously Afzal, who's still with us, for their contributions and their vision for setting this up. I've been a member of this I suppose, as long as I've been an elected member for this city. And as we know, this city and this region obviously has a significant Muslim population, and it has the second highest Jewish population outside Greater London, I believe. And somebody now who's over the years in the council, I'm now responsible for community cohesion in the city. I think this forum has played a major part, and certainly at times when there have been tensions, it's been a voice of calm and reason. Undoubtedly, most of those tensions have been emanated from events in the Middle East, but the forum has played its role at times to make sure to be that voice of reason and calm, as I said, and also for supporting each other, as I think Afzal mentioned, in terms of our religious practices, halal and kosher food, our places of worship, when they've been under attack from far-right groups. You know, it's been an assurance for our communities that are from both sides, that our Jewish and Muslim brothers and sisters are together in this fight, and their solidarity there. There's been a lot of events, and clearly it's very difficult. I've attended a significant number of them to kind of name, you know, your favorite. But the one I think that stands out for me, which I made the greatest impact at that moment in time, was the intertwining faith week, where Jewish people went to the mosque on a Friday, and then what happened is on the Saturday, the imam and some Muslim people attended the synagogue in the city centre, I think, which is with Rabbi Silverman. I remember it was at Manchester Central Mosque, and we had a Jewish visitors. They came in early, bang on time, and they sat at the back. And as the people came in to pray for the Friday prayers, as Manchester Central Mosque can hold up to about 1,700 to 2,000 people in that big hall. Everybody was looking at the back, who these people were. And the Imam, obviously, during his sermon, told them that obviously we had some people from the Jewish faith visiting us, Jewish rabbis. And for many, this was the first time they had seen people from the Jewish faith come in to see them pray on a Friday. And obviously there were questions asked about how this came about. And I think that was really important, because, you know, when you think about the number of people there and the number of people they must have gone home and told about this organization and the work that it does, it was about impact. So it made a really, really big impact. And obviously on Saturday, we went into I think it's a Reform synagogue. And for me, it was the first time I'd attended a Sabbath service. It was really an experience, and highlighted some of the similarities that two faiths have, as Afzal and others have already kind of said. So amazing work, and long may it continue. And thank you to all those people. Certainly in my time, I think Afzal's been chair, Johnny's been chair, and now Heather and Amin. And there's a lot of work involved in this. These organizations don't happen, these things and events don't happen by accident. So well done to everybody, and really proud to be part of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm now going to call upon Khan Mogul. So I'm operating a queue.
Okay, thank you very much, Amin, and thank you all of you. I think this is a very good occasion to celebrate, and also to remember Henry. I think Henry, as people have said, he's played a major role in the development of our city and our region as a whole. And he's been present on the national scene as well. My greatest interaction with him was at the Manchester Council for Community Relations, where he played a major role in steering the organization through some difficult times in the 90s and so on. And I think we found that his inspiration was very great for us. And I think one thing which we all did together, and Henry played a major role in that, is to bring together the Muslim and the Jewish communities together in Greater Manchester in such a way that we developed a protocol. And that protocol between the communities was this, that each community may have its affiliations and support across the world, in different campaigns and different organizations and different communities. But in Manchester, we will all be together as one community. And I think that was a great value, that we helped and supported each other whenever we had problems elsewhere in the world. As you know, particularly in the Middle East, there have been conflicts, but in Manchester, we never had that. We supported each other, and there are many incidents where one community has supported the other one when the other one came under attack of some kind. And I think also I want to mention that this dialogue between the Palestinians and the Jews in Middle East was actually developed quite a lot, and we supported the Mosaic organization when they came to Manchester, and we facilitated their meetings. I think that is an eye-opener for many people in our communities, that we can actually talk to each other. And especially when these young people were talking to each other, I think there is hope that we can achieve peace. And I think we see that now. Many of the protagonists in the Middle East are actually talking to each other. I think that's a great sign. But in Manchester's case, and nationally, I've been across many organizations and events nationally and across Europe as well. And I think the Muslim Jewish Forum is actually well respected. And the early people will remember that before we set it up, we organized actually meetings with people from London and other parts of the country to come to Manchester and give us their experiences of how we can build an organization which is beneficial to everyone. So really, the Muslim Jewish Forum is not only beneficial to the Muslims and the Jewish community, but also for the greater community in Greater Manchester. And I think that is something which we are proud of. And I don't waste my time to actually not actually highlight this. And I do highlight this wherever there's an opportunity of how communities can get together. And I think that is something which is really for a tribute to all of you who actually make a contribution towards that. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
I want to call Jackie Harrison.
Good evening, everybody. I'm delighted to celebrate with you all our 15th anniversary. The highlights for me were the 10th anniversary dinner, the concerts definitely, seeing people of all faiths dancing together, including Amin, of course. That was a most, I can't remember, it was 2 or 3 concerts, but they were absolutely wonderful. Also the picnics have been very well supported, and also our lovely holidays, little holiday friends. And it's been a joy in my life to meet and make such good friends whilst being on the forum. And I think it is a very valuable organisation, and I've loved every minute. And here's to the next 15 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me call Kezra now.
Hi, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed listening to our special guest speakers, Mark. Thank you so much for telling us about your father. What an amazing man. And what we heard from Brother Afzal, it shows he was truly amazing. I want to thank Brother Afzal. It was through him I joined the forum. He knew me well before, and I already had good relationship with some Jewish friends, etc. So I was ripe for it. He asked me one day, would you like to join our forum one day? And that was 11, 12 years ago, mighty long time. And it's been absolutely a pleasure for me. This is not no ordinary forum. It's educational. I've learned a lot. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to join, was to learn about Judaism, its rituals, way of life. And what I learned obviously was the commonalities, as Brother Afzal has mentioned. They're 2 brothers, they're 2 sisters, basically, the 2 faiths. The other main thing I joined was really to tackle anti-Semitism, anti-Islamophobia, the division between the two communities. And I believe through my own joining of this forum, It helped me a lot personally. It helped my family personally. And it helped to bring the communities together. For me, this is very normal to have Jewish friends. For me, it's very normal to sit and have a dinner together. For me, it's very normal to go out on a trip. And through these normal, everyday acts of life, I feel we're getting rid of those barriers. So for me, there were two things I want to mention as special events. One of the things we do, 5 of us here, 5 members, we go on a trip every year. We won't be going this year, but they've been unique. And one trip I really want to mention, which has been very educational for me, it's had a huge impact, and it resulted in a story as I'm a writer. It is our visit to the Holocaust, the concentration camps in Krakow. I was there with June, with Heather. The impact of that event, having my friends with us, Heather and June, telling us about their relatives, it brought it all home to me, what it was all about. And I remember coming home and saying to my son, you have to go back. You have to see this for yourself. And I was never quite the same after that. And I got a story out of it. It's called Train to Krakow. I learned a lot. I did a lot of research. People like Johnny, they helped me with some of the actual research. The other thing I want to mention was learning about real life rituals. And we had the pleasure, the honor to join some of those. For example, I was invited to bar mitzvah for Heather's nephew a year or two ago, and it was absolutely fabulous. It was a real honor and a privilege to be part of that community, to learn what it's about. And I was touched by the warmth, the welcome. I really loved it. And finally, because I don't want to take too much time, the other one I remember was that Seder meal. You remember Seder meal in Sarah's house? And then a group of Parisian friends. That was absolutely fabulous. We hosted our French counterparts. What an amazing event. And of course, it's thanks to all of you together, putting it together. So mashallah, we've gone from strength to strength, and really proud to be part of it. And we're doing amazing work.
Heather.
I just want to add a little bit to what Kezra says about how people, at first it was like Mohammed Amin, the Muslim fellow, and now it's Mohammed Amin, the retired accountant who goes on holiday with us. So it's normal now. I'd like to add that I enjoyed the French visitors. Again, it showed that we were spreading our wings, and I've thoroughly enjoyed our away days to Lincoln and Liverpool, and I think we're going to do Leeds next. And those days, they've been bonding because we've sat on the coach and we've had different people joining us from across Greater Manchester. A councillor in Stockport joins us, and the bonding on the coach has been fantastic. And of course, getting to know people and learn about the Jews of Lincoln. I think that was one of my favourite days in Lincoln. Yeah, a couple of funny things. Say at first, I couldn't remember Amin's name, so I used to call him to Martin. I used to say, I wonder if the clever man will be there with his nice wife. And of course, Afzal was always the man across the road who used to be a policeman who stole my cases. But they became very dear friends, Afzal, Amin and Tahara.
Thank you, Heather. So June is next.
How I came to join the forum was rather unusual. I heard about it, spoke to my friend Eve Bolkover, who I thought was the person who knew all about it. And she said, no, I don't. You need to speak to Henry Guterman. And here is his phone number. So I was very busy with the family and one thing and another. So I put his phone number behind the bread bin. And some weeks, months later, I thought, you know, I really do want to join that. I'm really interested in it. So I rang him up and asked him about it, and the rest is history. And it has been such an enjoyable, interesting, useful, and we hope making the world a better place. And one of the lovely things is the close personal friends we've made. And here's the next 15 years. Thank you.
Johnny, I can see you now. Did you want to say something?
I certainly can. My apologies, I've been having connectivity issues, so I'm on my phone. But for those of you who are aware, I was actually co-chair of this forum for about half of its lifetime. It's quite something, and it was an absolute pleasure to be involved with everybody here. I can see Kezra, and I still remember going to Manchester Grammar School with Kezra and speaking to over 300 boys there from both the Muslim and the Jewish societies, and talking about some pretty tough issues with them. And I always thought that was quite important for the forum to do, that we shouldn't shy away from talking about those things, not just that unite us, but also that sometimes divide us. And that was good to do there. And I remember going to schools with Amin as well. And those are the sorts of things that we can do as a forum. We can influence. And again, my apologies having missed some of the conversation, but we showed how effective we were. I don't know if you've told this, Amin, in terms of the petition regarding shahita and halal. Have you told this yet?
No, we haven't talked about that. So can you tell us about it? Because you started that petition. It was you that telephoned me.
Yes, well, indeed. We saw that it had taken 10 months, but the British Veterinary Association have managed to get 100,000 signatures on their online petition to try and ban religious slaughter. And we were quite concerned as a Jewish community, and I talked to Sharon Bannister, who was president of the Jewish Representative Council at the time, about what we should do, and I suggested we need to work in partnership with the Muslim community. So, of course, I got in touch with Amin in terms of our relationship with the Muslim Jewish Forum, and Amin immediately agreed that we needed to put up our own petition up. And whereas it had taken the British Veterinary Association 10 months to get their 100,000 signatures, by using our contacts, it took us 10 days. And the debate that then happened in Westminster Hall was, I think, a very different one than the BVA had wanted, because it was much more about our agenda and about animal welfare from our perspective, and the fact that, in fact, religious slaughter, when done properly, is the most effective form and most harmless form of slaughter. And that just shows the power that we can have when we work together. And all of those events that we've done, yes, a lot of them are social events, but behind that, there's a very important message that we do have a huge amount that unites us, and that's where we need to take it. And we need to ensure that what we look to do is get more and more into our communities, make sure they hear what we're doing, make sure that people have the opportunity to be involved. My frustration always is, yes, we have a certain number of people coming, but we want more. But it's also that sharing back of what we've done with those communities that's important, because as those messages get passed back, people realize that there's this positive relationship. That's the power of the forum. And what that means on the ground is that you don't get the sort of animosity that you would have otherwise. So the forum's done a remarkable job across Greater Manchester of building those relationships between the two communities at a time when often it's been quite difficult. So obviously, we hope that many, many more years to come, not just another 15, but another 115.
Yeah, I just want to build on what Johnny has said, so I'm going to speak again. First of all, that petition that Johnny mentioned was incredibly powerful. At one stage, we were getting a sort of 1,000 signatures an hour, and it was because the Board of Deputies of British Jews, the Muslim Council of Britain, and many, many other Muslim organisations got behind it. And I was visiting a personal friend of mine in Kent, a Muslim, and his daughter was signing the petition at that time, but she didn't know that I was the Mohammed Amin who was the person whose name was on the petition. The other thing I want to say about Johnny is about 5 years into the forum, I realized what progress we had made and how we had become friends, because I was able to tell him an edgy joke, which I'm not going to get into now, which told me straight away that I felt comfortable telling Johnny that edgy joke because I felt confident about his friendship. And it's something that I wouldn't have dared to say to anybody Jewish the day that we sort of first set up the forum. And when I first helped to set up the forum and was talking about it with other Muslims in Manchester, a common thing that was said to me, don't Muslims and Jews always fight? That was said by Muslims, it was said by Christians. That was just the general assumption that there was about Muslim-Jewish relations, particularly said by people who are neither Muslim nor Jewish. And nobody says that to me anymore. And that's a sign of how far we have come and what a difference we've made. Let me now do something which is officially Tahara's role. She hasn't said anything yet. I'm going to call on Tahara, who is our company secretary and also my wife, so how's that for nepotism, to hold a formal toast to the Muslim-Jewish Forum of Greater Manchester. Tahara.
Have you all got your glasses charged first?
Yes.
Yeah, good. I have great pleasure in proposing a toast to the Muslim-Jewish Forum of Greater Manchester. Here's to the Muslim Forum.
The Muslim-Jewish Forum.
L'chaim.
L'chaim.